Hi class, my name is Andrew Weeding. Today we'll be discussing the strategic use of space. Have you ever sat down at your desk and realized your favorite pen is missing? Do you feel like your workplace is not adequate for your job? These are important questions for managers to consider when building a successful workplace. Today we'll talk about three different elements of the workspace. The first topic we'll touch on is recognizing individual space. The second topic is creating the ideal space for your team. And the third topic is understanding your workspace needs. First, we'll discuss recognizing individual space. We're going to look at fixed space and semi-fixed space. The fixed space is considered like a barrier or a desk or a cubicle. When looking and recognizing individual space in a fixed space, you as the manager, when you're speaking with your employee, are not going to want to sit on their desk. You're not going to want to disrespect their items. You're not going to grab a pen off their desk, as you will create a distrust with your employees. As far as when we're talking about recognizing individual space, maybe when you're in a semi-fixed space environment, such as a conference table. A conference table, when many people are sitting around it, there can be a lot of commotion, a lot of objects on the table. You want to respect each one of these objects. Just because it's more of a relaxed environment, maybe it's not such a private environment, does not mean you're able to just go and grab papers. You want to be aware of where you place your papers and pens and your coffee. You want to be aware of your actions to not annoy anybody. Next, we're going to talk about creating the ideal space for your team. The most important thing about creating an ideal space for your team is setting your team up for success. There are two different environments managers can choose from, more of an open environment or a private environment. Depending on what your environment entails depends on which one you're going to want to choose. Let's say part of your team works remotely and the other part works in the office. You may want to choose more of a private environment because a lot of your team members spend the majority of their day on Zoom meetings. If we're in an open environment, there can be a lot of background noise, which can aggravate the team members who are in the Zoom meetings. Let's say most of your employees work in an office. Maybe you want more of that open environment because you can hold large in-person meetings and you can foster new ideas and creativity. A second point you want to think about when setting your team up for success is that new is better than old. You want to maintain your equipment and update new equipment, everything from technology to desks to chairs. If one of your employees has a bad chair, maybe they're not going to be as productive because their back might hurt. If their desk isn't able to go from sitting to standing, this is another option that increases productivity as employees will want to be able to move up and down. A couple things to think about when you're updating your equipment is it's going to increase your productivity, it's going to improve their efficiency, and overall it's going to improve employee satisfaction. As we all know, when employees are happy, they are going to increase their productivity. The third point I want to touch on today is understanding your workspace needs. Depending on the makeup of your work team, depends on what your workspace needs. There are differences among generations. Generation Y, a younger generation, the Generation Y or the Millennials, 40% of them prefer like an open space workplace compared to only 16% of them prefer more of a private cubicle. The older generation, 45% of them would rather have a private workplace, whereas 16% want that open environment. So depending on the makeup of your team depends on how you want to design your space. Another point I want to touch on is the office design. The office needs to be designed to meet the team's needs. Okay? If the office is too small, the team may not feel comfortable meeting together. If the office is way too big, it may be too large and the people will not mingle and create ideas together. You also want to develop a space to meet the team goals. Once again, if your space is too small, too big, if it doesn't have the right amount of equipment involved, then therefore the space is not adequate for your team. I personally work in a healthcare industry and we use an interdisciplinary approach. Our office is set up where there's no barriers, it's more of that open concept. In this, we sit down with case managers, doctors, nurses, therapists, and we bounce ideas off each other. This promotes that collaborative approach that we're looking for. Our manager did a great job of designing our office to fit our needs. As managers in the future, we're definitely going to want to understand our workspace and our needs. For conclusion, the reasons we discussed today, strategic use of space is important to our workplace. We learned the importance of recognizing individual workspace, of creating the ideal space for our team, and customizing our space to meet our needs. These principles will improve workflow and productivity. Remember, building space for today is critical for tomorrow's success. Thank you.